Aloha. It's a beautiful morning, and it's good to see all the shining faces reflecting the light of Baha'u'llah. I bring you greetings from the National Spiritual Assembly, and it's such a pleasure for me to be at this conference, my first time in Green Lake, and to be with the friends from this part of the country. This has been a wonderful conference, and the theme is a great theme, Mirror Forth My Beauty. I will attempt to speak this morning on reflecting the light of glory, or reflect the light of glory. Friends, today I thought we'll start by talking about words and what they're worth. As you remember that phrase, $5 word or 50-cent word, that you called up when someone said something eloquently? Some words that used to be in those categories have been devalued now, right along with the dollar. One of them is fresh. Fresh used to mean that you had just picked it from the garden. A flower, a tomato, whatever it might have been. Now advertising tells us everything is fresh. We have from fresh frozen orange juice to the fresh lemony scent of a room spray. Now that seems to be asking us to stretch our imaginations to the limit. To think that something fresh can come from a spray can. Another devalued word is unique. What many people used to refer to as special, they now call unique. And English teachers everywhere seem to have lost the battle in telling students that unique has no comparative form. In conversation, in print, all around us, we now begin to hear about this or that being more unique than something else. Or worse yet, most unique. That's impossible, of course. The dictionary defines unique as without a like or equal. So there's nothing else with which we can compare something that is truly unique. Well, I didn't come here to lecture on words or correct the uses of the English language. You can read those books by Theodore Bernstein or Edwin Newman on that subject. Or far better, we can turn to the writings of the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, for an incomparable example of fine English usage, and also learn more about our precious faith for having done so. But I did have a reason for reviewing on the meaning of the word unique with you. We are going to talk about some things that really are unique in the truest sense of the word. So we ought to agree on its meaning. Do you know what the dictionary says about unique? It says single in its kind of excellence. That ought to strike a responsive chord on Baha'is. The beloved Master Abdu'l-Baha told us, "We desire distinction for you in all things." If we carry out our work according to the divine standard explained by the Master, much of what we do will be unique. Unique? Let's cite a concrete example of uniqueness in the Baha'i faith, and one that's close to home. I'm thinking about the magnificent house of worship, the Mother Temple of the West, not so very far from here. How it thrills my heart, and yours too, I'm sure, to hear the hand of the cause of God, William Sears, recount the wonderful story of how the beloved guardian, a beloved master, after having approved and encouraged the efforts of the earliest American Baha'is, now stood on that hallowed spot and turned the shovel of earth, and later spoke those words of such vision. The temple is already built. Yes, in its conception, in its design, in its construction, in its station, its purpose, and its spiritual significance, the Mother Temple of the West can lay every rightful claim to the word unique. Friends, how many of you have had the bounty of visiting the house of worship in Wilmette? Yeah, very good. Everyone. You are fortunate, many of you, to live so close to the temple that you The building of the house of worship held a special place in the heart of Shoghi Effendi. For among other things, it was the first demonstration of unified action, both spiritual and material, on the part of the believers around the world. Its construction called for unprecedented financial support and previously unparalleled monetary sacrifice from the lovers of the Blessed Beauty. At times, especially in those years of depression and war, it wasn't easy, but the guardian was always there to stimulate the friends, to remind them that this undertaking was unique. Do you recall the story of the beautiful Persian carpet that hangs in Foundation Hall at the House of Worship? This beautiful carpet was made for a Russian crown prince. Finally, it came into the possession of the Baha'is, and then it covered the resting place of Baha'u'llah. Abdu'l-Baha prayed and cried on it. When the construction of the house of worship was delayed, Shoghi Effendi sent it to the United States to raise funds to continue construction. The friends were overcome by this gesture and responded with a generous outpouring of funds. The carpet was then given as a gift to the American believers. Think now of what that beautiful house of worship, built through the loving sacrifice of the friends, means to Baha'is everywhere, as well as to the more than 1 million visitors who have passed through its doors to visit and pray. That, dear friends, is a wonderful example of something that is unique in our faith. We could cite so many more examples, for we should remember that ours is a great privilege to be alive in this formative age of the faith, when we are the first to raise up the spiritual institutions that will bring solace and tranquility to a world in turmoil, the ones to clear a path to the lesser peace, that those who follow us may pave the road to the most great peace. So today, while reminding you of that spirit of sacrifice which built the house of worship, I want to share with you the exciting details of yet another Baha'i project, one for our time, a project which will allow us to demonstrate that same spirit of sacrifice. And like the house of worship, it will be something truly unique, a gift of service to ours and future generations, reflecting the light of His glory. Friends, I'm speaking of the construction of the first Baha'i-owned and operated radio station in North American continent, WLGI, at Louis Gregory Baha'i Institute. It's extremely significant, don't you feel, that the Universal House of Justice has directed us to undertake this momentous project at this time. In its Res 1 message of this year, the Supreme Body tells us, and I quote from its letter, "We may therefore be utterly confident that the new throb of energy now vibrating through the cause will empower it to meet the oncoming challenges of assisting, as maturity and resources allow, the development of the social and economic life of peoples, of collaborating with the forces leading toward the establishment of order in the world, of influencing the exploitation and constructive usage of modern technology, and in all these ways enhancing the prestige and progress of the faith, and uplifting the conditions of the generality of mankind." Friends, if we don't do it, who will? The political system? The president? The wealthy? You tell me. Do you see how handsomely radio, when put to the service of the cause of Baha'u'llah, can fulfill these hopes of the universal house of justice? A radio station, when it serves the lofty aims and purposes of the faith, will certainly affect the social and economic life of its people. And there can be no question that it represents the exploitation and constructive usage of modern technology. It is important that we share this vision from the very outset, friends, of what WLGI radio can be, what it must be as an agency of the faith, reaching out to serve the workaday material needs as well as giving the spiritually healing message of Baha'u'llah. Because what we are talking about, friends, when we speak of WLGI radio, is a Baha'i instrument that can have the same spiritual significance as a house of worship. Think of the potential for service of such a radio station. WLGI is our station. The House of Justice has directed us to construct it. The National Spiritual Assembly has taken steps to proceed with that construction, and its glorious effects can already be clearly envisioned. And like the believers of an earlier time during the construction of the House of Worship, the realization of WLGI radio will demand many sacrifices of us, including financial sacrifices, opportunities that are ours alone to advance the cause of God. For WLGI will be unique. Never again will we raise up the first Baha'i radio station of North America. Ours will be the opportunity as we build WLGI to reflect the light of glory, to evince that same high-spirited, unified action which built the temple and which alone will see this project through to completion. If some of you are wondering why a radio station, let me assure you that this is not an idea which suddenly popped into our minds a couple of years ago. In a general sense, the writings of the central figures of our faith support such an undertaking. The Blessed Beauty speaks to us of an ever-advancing civilization. And the beloved Master reminds us that we live in a wondrous new century of the attainment of arts and science. Yet, even more specifically, it is Shoghi Effendi who spoke directly of the use of radio in service to the faith. In several letters written to the Friends, for example, in 1946, the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada had to abandon its plan to build a radio station because it lacked the necessary resources. On March 25th of that year, the following message was included in a letter written on behalf of the beloved guardian. And he says he considers that such a station would be a very great asset to the cause, not only as a teaching medium and a wonderful form of publicity, but also as an enhancement of its prestige. So you see, this is a project which had the enthusiastic support of the beloved guardian himself. As for the supreme institution, the Universal House of Justice, we are all aware that that august body has charged the Baha'is of the world in the 5 and currently in the 7-year plan with the task of using the mass media, including radio, to proclaim the faith to masses of people. Furthermore, it was with the approval and guidance of the House of Justice that 2 Baha'i radio stations have already been established in South America. And when our supreme institution received the word that the Federal Communication Commission had authorized the construction of WLGI, it sent this cable to the National Spiritual Assembly. And it reads, "Hearty congratulations, achievement, long-awaited step, establishment, first Baha'i radio station, North America, enabling you, pioneer, model program, consolidation, upliftment, Baha'i community, South Carolina, praying your wise mobilization, bounteous resources for media development in the United States, behalf beloved faith, providing further impetus, teaching Southern states. Loving greetings, Universal House of Justice." So you see, dear friends, our infallible source of wisdom and guidance has fully blessed this momentous undertaking. There can be no doubt as to its appropriateness. Far from it, the National Spiritual Assembly prays that the Friends are exhilarated by the prospect of constructing and operating North America's first Baha'i radio station. In every sense of the words, the opportunity is unique and will never come to us again. In March of 1982, general plans were focused on Gregory Institute, when under the direction of the National Assembly, application was made to the FCC for a construction permit to build a non-commercial education FM broadcast station at the Institute site near Hemingway, South Carolina. Discussions among and between the National Spiritual Assembly, the National Teaching Committee, the South Carolina Regional Teaching Committee, and the director of Louis Gregory Institute served to outline the purpose and goals of the station and how it would best function in cooperation with the existing institute. Finally, as reported earlier this year in American Baha'i, the Federal Communication Commission, acting on our request, granted a construction permit on November the 24th of last year for building the studio and transmitter facilities of WLGI. This permit is the first step in the process of obtaining a broadcast license in this country. Later, when construction is completed, all equipment has been installed, and the transmitter and antenna have been thoroughly tested, we will be able to apply for program test authority. On receiving such authority from the FCC, WLGI will be able to begin regular daily broadcasting. When that glorious day will come, friends, depends to a very great degree on the generosity of the American believers. As we have reported to you on the WLGI radio tapes, which you have heard at feasts, things are underway at the Louis Gregory Baha'i Institute. It's exciting to hear the sound of the bulldozers and graders as they clear the woods and prepare the site for the station and tower, as well as for the additional facilities such as an added dormitory and office space for teaching and consolidation that will become very necessary due to the anticipated impact of the radio station. Yes, there has been progress, but not enough of it. Our FCC construction permit is due to expire in November, and we must file for an extension. A clearing in the forest is a first step, but is hardly the unique radio station upon which we all look so proudly one day. The need for sacrifice on the part of each one of us is great, as will be the results of that sacrifice. We can pull a trailer and have recently done so for office space, but believe me, friends, this will not reflect the light of glory. We will see this powerful medium of mass communication used to promote the cause of Baha'u'llah in South Carolina, but not until the day when it is able to transmit its programs to the souls who are so eagerly waiting to hear them. Let me tell you about the opportunity and the need for using radio in South Carolina. As you know, approximately 10 years ago, South Carolina had mass enrollments in the faith. The rapid increase in the number of believers in assemblies and other gains in such a short time that the deepened Baha'is were unable to keep up with it. In 1970, South Carolina had 3 local spiritual assemblies and approximately 100 believers. Today, we have 237 local spiritual assemblies and approximately 12,000 believers. Now, many of you are educators, and you begin to complain when they fill your classes with more than 40 students. Many of you work at institutions of higher learning. In an institution of higher learning where I worked previously, we have approximately 5,000 students, and we have 326 faculty members, and we have about 295 clerical support staff to serve those 5,000 students. Now just think of the expansion of the faith. We can no longer say that we have these Baha'is and those Baha'is. The faith is a universal religion. And regardless of whether the believers are in South America, Africa, or in South Carolina, they are the same as we are. They belong to the faith of Baha'u'llah, the Blessed Beauty. So it is for us, the deepened Baha'is, wherever we may be, to assist in this process. Speaking of our Baha'i community in South Carolina, it is large, dispersed, and primary rural. To reach that population and to serve the general population as well for service to humanity is one of the loftiest of Baha'i goals, and it must be reflected in our radio station. We will transmit a 50,000-watt FM stereo signal at 90.9 on the dial. That power will allow us to reach out to a radius of about 75 miles from the Institute, thus perhaps serving some 5,000 to 6,000 believers. People often ask, what will the programming be? At this date, we don't want to limit ourselves, because a Baha'i station, while performing some of the traditional functions of radio, can also pioneer new forms of broadcasting. Remember that the beloved Master has told us that he desires distinction for us in all things. But to be Pacific, we must from the start see the station as performing a new role of broadcasting. Yes, it will entertain, but it will not be an entertainment station. It will inform, but it will not be a news and information station. It will not be a strictly educational station, though it certainly will educate, we hope, in many ways. So then, what, you ask, is left? We must view WLGI as a developmental station. Abdu'l-Baha speaks of universal education for mankind, an education which encompasses the totality of our spiritual and material needs. It is to this end that WLGI will dedicate itself. A commercial station seeks to be the most popular station in terms of having the greatest number of listeners in its area. This is so that it can charge the highest rates for advertising. WLGI, rather than seeking to be the most popular station, will strive to become the most valuable station. WLGI will be the station which offers the most useful service to its rural audience, both Baha'is and non-Baha'i alike. And the concepts of most popular and most valuable aren't mutually exclusive either. The Baha'i stations in South America have already proven that by providing a unique service, they have achieved a very large audience, as well as a high level of trust and confidence on the part of the listeners and officials. And there is our word again, unique. WLGI will sound unique. Of course, as I already mentioned, WLGI will provide many traditional broadcast services, such as music, weather, agricultural reports, community activities, discussions of issues of public concern, and many other such items. Because we know that people turn to radio primarily for entertainment and information, we must respect that pattern and those needs. But it is the manner in which we will present such programming that will make WLGI distinctive. Every hour, every minute of broadcast time will be consistent with Baha'i standards of dignity, morality, and good taste. No, friends, we will not permit ourselves to sound sanctimonious, because we are not condescending toward our fellow man. But our listeners must be able to sense that boundless love and heartfelt sincerity which the beloved Master calls us to instill in our lives. Valuable, we will constantly investigate the need for our programming, evaluate its effectiveness, and then refine it so that WLGI grows continually more valuable to its listeners. These same standards are no less true for our Baha'i programming. We will lovingly and invitingly present the cause of God, its history, its aims, its teachings, to a sometime unaware, sometimes skeptical, but increasingly interested audience, thus opening the door to personal teaching. We will do this in many forms, ranging from short spot announcement to full-length programs. But perhaps the Baha'i programming which excites us most at this moment is that element which will become a potent force in the consolidation of the large and dispersed Baha'i community of South Carolina and North Carolina, and the deepening of our Baha'i brothers and sisters in that state, which is the home of some 12% of the United States Baha'i population. Imagine the situation of these dear friends who have warmly embraced the cause of Baha'u'llah in their hearts. but who, for lack of experience and education, and due to their geographical remoteness, for none of which they are blameworthy, find it very difficult to deepen their knowledge of the faith. Imagine then the effect of the creative word coming directly into the homes of these sincere believers. Picture them rising in the early morning and retiring in the evening as they tune in to hear Baha'i prayers and devotions. Put yourself in their position. You have a limited reading ability, and you are illiterate perhaps, and WLGI makes it possible for you to deepen your knowledge of the sacred writings, to understand the history of our beloved faith and the lives of its central figures, and to know about its teachings and laws, and thus to put them into practice in your life. And yes, in a future stage, we will even be able to teach reading skills by radio. Imagine, friends, how hundreds of local spiritual assemblies, our divinely ordained administrative bodies, can be helped to reach a state of functioning harmoniously, vigorously, and efficiently. Words of the beloved guardian quoted by the Universal House of Justice in its Rizwan message. Think, too, of how children's activities can be stimulated by radio. Envision how WLGI will help to establish the Baha'i calendar by encouraging the observance of feasts and holy days. Friends, I could go on and on at length, but your imagination can suggest many other usage. Indeed, you can easily see that in terms of service to the generality of humanity and to the Baha'is, WLGI will truly be unique and will definitely reflect the light of His glory. But these are our plans, our hopes. They will become a reality only to the extent that we sacrifice to make them so. We have had some believers a few who pioneer from the northeastern states and a couple from the western states, but that's not enough. In South Carolina, the believers are struggling. The district teaching committees are functioning. We have 7 district teaching committees. We have assistants of the auxiliary board members who are helping to carry out this work, and they too are making sacrifice to support WLGI. In the past few months, a few believers in a few of the assemblies have already contributed $15,000 from South Carolina toward WLGI. Nationally, you know that the National Spiritual Assembly, through its Office of the Treasurer, have been promoting the idea through cookbooks, treasurer's representatives, NSA members, and other methods. Let me close then, friends, by returning again to Rizwan 1983, message from our Universal House of Justice. That message speaks of an upsurge of personal dedication rarely seen on so universal a scale and holding the highest promise for the future. And it tells us of the growing maturity of a worldwide religious community, which all these processes indicate is further evidence in the reaching out by a number of national communities to the social and economic life of their countries, exemplified by the inception of radio stations. Friends, the House of Justice views this project, WLGI, as a sign of the growing maturity of our American Baha'i community. It follows then that the raising of the funds necessary to construct this station and ensured its continued daily operation, as well as to expand the Louis G. Gregory Baha'i Institute for the magnificent effects which must follow, is also a sign of our spiritual maturity. Let us arise to the occasion. Let us show to the concourse on high, to our supreme body and the Baha'is of the world, that our community, so richly blessed materially and facing its glorious spiritual destiny as promised by Abdu'l-Baha, will not miss this opportunity to reach out to so many hungry souls by the potent medium of radio. The opportunity is unique in Baha'i history. I know how we feel about our beloved house of worship and the repairs that are needed. These repairs will take time. The first step this year is to find consultants to tell us how to repair it. Then we will probably be able to tell you what it will cost. At this time, we do not know. However, with the project of the first Baha'i radio North American continent, the time is limited to this Baha'i year. Obtaining a frequency and license is not so simple. Our lawyers in Washington was amazed that Channel 6 TV did not file against us, because they have the best lawyers in Washington, and they have filed against most educational state radio stations because it does interfere with their frequency. For months we were praying that we will get our construction permit. Other religious organizations, such as the Baptists and others, wrote to us telling us how to fight Channel 6. We did nothing. We continued to pray. And I believe it was February the 6th when finally we felt clear of Channel 6. But now, dear friends, if for any reason we let this time pass and falter and have to reapply, we're not too sure that Channel 6 will not attack us. Channel 6 is an educational television which serves the general area, originated in Wilmington, North Carolina. If we lose this opportunity to reflect His glory through the voice of the house of worship, and you perhaps heard Dr. Feroz Kasimzadeh has said that the house of worship has now obtained a voice, and this voice is WLGI, reflecting the light of the glory of Baha'u'llah in South Carolina, North Carolina, and other southern states. The opportunity is unique. Let deeds, not words, be thou adorning. Let's reflect the light of the glory of Baha'u'llah. This is a new opportunity, and we can do it. We must do it. Thank you.